Hello my stitchy friends, welcome back. My name is Laura, you found Laladi Stitches, and today's episode is a pollinator Sal update. Oh, classic. All right, so we are on part 6. We have completed 5 of the 7 segments of this beautiful pattern in praise of pollinators by the Blue Flower. It is so beautiful. It's been such a delight to stitch. I will say that butterfly kind of kicked my butt a little bit, but it was really fun. So that's our pattern. And this is where we are, up to this point. So I started in the middle, I took a jaunt down to this corner, a flying leap over to the top half of the saguaro cactus, came over here and caught our beautiful hummingbird moth, which is basically a large butterfly, only not. Don't quote me on these things. I'm just rambling. And then we have wound up in this bottom corner with our beautiful monarch butterfly and our cute little beetle. So much fun. I love these flowers. Are so jolly. They're just joyful, bright, happy little flowers. I've also noticed as we've gotten farther into this, I'm really appreciating, and whether it was intentional or not, I'm appreciating, I can't speak, it's official. Brain out the window. I'm appreciating the balance of color that we're getting. So we have moments of red, but then we also have little moments of red to kind of balance it out, and it's also up in here, and then, you know, the same with the green. Like, everything is well balanced, and I don't know, it's very satisfying. Anyways, how'd it go? Did you enjoy stitching the monarch? I loved doing that dark brown. I started with that and then filled in the holes of color. And before you started putting the color in, I really loved kind of the lattice work effect you got. I was a little surprised by the colors, but you know, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And not all monarchs, as we saw in our pictures last month, are vivid. Some of them have softer shades of their colors, so it's lovely. I'm enjoying this so much. So, where are we going this month? This month, we are a day away from October, official spooky season. So, we're gonna hop right up here and stitch our bat. My name is Batty. My logic is erratic. Okay. Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be really fun, which, I mean, I suppose leaves no surprise to where we will finish. And that was honestly more of a color palette choice than anything. Anyway, bats. Let's talk bats. Pollination is not just for the birds and the bees, as we're finding out, right? I've got my list here of information from my research. So because we only have one pollinator this month, it should be relatively easy to focus. Hopefully my presentation will not be batty. Okay, so let's start with just some interesting facts. There are over 1,400 species of bat worldwide. They range in size from the smallest, cutest little bumblebee bat that weighs less than a penny. I'll put a picture up here. It is the world's smallest mammal. To the flying foxes, which are huge. They are the part of the origins for Dracula lore turning into bats, and They're huge. I don't want one to land on me. But they also only eat fruit. So, I mean, it's interesting how you look back in history. This is just a little side note. This is like not on the page, but it's interesting to me how you look back on history and lore, and a lot of the origins of mythology come from a lack of understanding of natural process, right? Of natural science. And as we have learned and, grown as a race, we've learned that bats, flying fox bats in particular, are fruit eaters. They only eat fruit and pollen, and they are, harmless to humans, despite their giant size. Anyways, they can have a wingspan of up to 6 feet. That is my husband's height in wings. It's huge. Again, only imagine seeing one of those come out at night, and especially not understanding fully what that is and how that would spark the imagination. Anyways, kind of cool. Not all bats hibernate. They're one of them, and bears are two of the most familiar creatures that hibernates, but not all of them do. Some of them actually migrate from warm climates to warm climates seasonally, which we'll talk about in a minute. They have few natural predators. Some fast-flying predatory birds will catch them, the smaller varieties, but really they don't have a lot of predators. They fly. They're just out of reach of a lot of potential threats, which makes, unfortunately, disease one of their biggest threats. That, and of course, any encroachment in habitat. Let's see. They are the only flying mammal. And it was interesting in the article I read, they're like, you're probably thinking, but what about the flying squirrels? They don't technically fall. They kind of fly with style. They don't fly, they fall with style. So that makes bats, they truly fly, obviously. So they're the only flying mammal, and they fly fast. Some have been clocked at up to 100 miles an hour in recent research, which is wild. That's like a lightning bolt. Okay, not really, but like seriously, that's really fast. Let's see. The longest observed living bat, so the oldest bat, was 41 years old, and that bat lived in Siberia. Most bat varieties live less than 20 years in nature, but there are 6 species documented by scientists that have been observed to live over 30 years. So they have much longer lifespans than I would have expected. I don't know, I guess I would have thought maybe 5 years in my ignorance. But they live pretty long lives. So they are, as I have mentioned, mammals. They have baby bats, and they're called pups, and they're so cute. They feed them breast milk, like a mammal would, and most bats only birth a single pup. There are a few varieties in South America that are prone to birthing twins, but most of them only birth a single pup. So they're very clean, contrary to you always think bats, oh, rabies, ooh, ugh. And while some do carry disease, mostly through their feces, they're actually very clean. They clean themselves like cats. And so, kind of interesting. Now let's get into the nitty-gritties of their pollination. So, where am I? Okay, so they're very important pollinators in tropical and desert climates. Most flower visiting bats are found in Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific Islands. Though, as I mentioned already, they are worldwide. For instance, bats are a vital part of native wildlife in the UK. They make up nearly a third of the mammal population. That seems like a really large number, but this was literally from a UK Bat Conservation Trust website. Like, that's what they said. That's wild to me. Bats are a really good indicator of the biodiversity of an ecosystem, and they're found everywhere. The Americas, Australia, UK, worldwide, Southeast Asia, Africa, I mean, all of the Americas. Like, they're literally everywhere. And two species, so we talked about how they tend to hibernate, but there are two species specifically that are nectar feeding. So there are different kinds of bats. There are nectar feeding bats, and then there are bats that eat a lot of bugs, basically. And I think there's some from what I understand, crossover of like both. But two species of nectar feeding bats migrate over 1,000 miles from Mexico up to Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas in the United States. 1,000 miles. That's a long flight. That's like the monarch butterflies going south for the winter. They kind of like, it seems like they follow similar migratory paths. It's very interesting. Let's see. They're among the largest pollinators. Think 6-foot wingspan. Evolutionary-wise, their elongated snouts and tongues help them extract the nectar. I cannot speak today. What is this? But they also have the nectar-feeding bats also have fewer teeth, and their teeth are smaller. So their elongated tongues actually work more efficiently because there's less in the way. The Mexican long-nosed bat can visit up to 30 flowers every night. Let's see. Over 500 species of plant rely on bats to pollinate their flowers. 300 species of those are fruit. So think mangoes, durians, guava, agave, like these foods that we enjoy, as we know, are reliant upon bats to pollinate them. Another plant we kind of addressed a few months ago is the saguaro cactus. That is also very heavily pollinated by bats. My brain. I'm so sorry. Okay. The blooms on night flowers, are often pale. The flowers are nocturnal, so they open up in the night hours, as opposed to the bright, colorful day blooms that bees pollinate. Which is interesting. So a common misconception is that bats are blind. They're not. They actually see. But they do use sonar or echolocation to determine the shapes around them at night. So it gives them kind of a night vision. Helps not only to locate the flowers, but also to detect swift flying predators. So as I kind of mentioned, they don't have a lot of predators, but birds, big birds will take out bats. And I mean, you can see why. It feels like there would be some risk to flying into a swarm of bats. A swarm, I'm not sure if that's the proper term. I should have looked that up. But a group of bats, because they fly out in the thousands from some caves, and to fly as a bird into that, I mean, not like they're violent, but you know, it seems like there would be some risk. Maybe they pick off ones on the edge. I don't know. Anyways, but their echolocation helps them be aware as they're feeding even of potential threats, as well as helping them find their food sources. Another interesting thing was they're feeding some of the smaller varieties of bats can hover like a hummingbird can, which is really cool. Not very many creatures can do that. I don't think they can fly backwards. I didn't see any mention of that because hummingbirds can fly all directions. But they can hover for a time to be able to feed on a flower, which is cool. Let's see. There is a conservation service called NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service, and they work with farmers, ranchers, and forest land owners to implement conservation practices and environmental benefits for bats, including habitats and food. So as with so many pollinators and, you know, just so many wild creatures, as the world changes and we use our resources sometimes irresponsibly as humans, it has an impact on the creatures, right? So it's an interesting thing because sometimes even responsible, how do I put this? I read an article where they were talking about, I think it's agave. I think it was agave, which is apparently what they make tequila from. Whatever plant they make tequila from, they plant in mass in South America. And so the bats use the agave. They rely on these flowers as much as the flowers rely on them. And the article is talking about, I cannot find my thoughts. See, this is why I write notes. Anyways, the article is talking about how, despite the fact that they're planting a lot of these plants that should, in theory, support the ecosystem and provide food sources for the bats, unfortunately, they tend to harvest the agave right before the flowers bloom. And so it actually, instead of benefiting the biodiversity of the area, it actually impacts negatively the biodiversity because the bats know, they know that this food source is here, it's almost ready, and then it's gone before they can actually utilize it. So it's an interesting thing how it can seem like we're almost there, like we're making positive steps, we're planting things that could help, but then we're not quite there in a lot of our efforts, in that, not that they're planting them for the bats, but there's always something more we can do, right? Like a little bit more education would say, okay, if you left these plants here for an extra week, you're probably not going to lose your crop, but you will then support these creatures, which are really important, both in for pollinating purposes, but they're also kind of like nature's bug control. A large population of the bats eat insects, and in fact they eat their body weight in insects when they do that, and they have a really positive impact on the areas where they do feed, and they actually consume enough insects to reduce the need for pesticides in those areas, which is awesome. And of course, along with everything else, you know, pesticides are poison. And so the use of them can obviously impact the bats. But anyways, I thought they were really cool. I learned some really interesting new things in my research, and I mean, I've always thought they were really cute. Especially some of the long-nosed bats. Oh my gosh, they just look like, they're so cute. They have the cutest faces and big eyes, and and they're so sweet. I mean, they have little family units, and bats are interesting. Bats are interesting. So I think that's all I have for you as far as information goes. But I hope you enjoy stitching our cute little bat. I do have a couple of, let's see if I can get it to focus there. There you go. Stitching tips. One thing to note, and this is a big change, is that there was a misprint in the pattern, in the earlier patterns. So depending on when you bought your pattern, the straight stitches in our cute little bat's wings, or a big bat, it's pretty big stitching, but once you frame it, I'm just going to do an outline and then fill in. It'll go real quick. It'll be comfort stitching, right? Anyways, but the straight stitches that go in the wings that give they're those fragile bones that go through the membrane of the bat wing. It says to stitch those straight stitches in 859. You need to stitch them in 3859. I misread my own note. So do use 3859. Add the extra letter. Number! Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm out of here, y'all. I am a mess. My brain. The logic is erratic. Oh my goodness. Also, any other Ferngully fans out there? It kind of scared me as a kid, but I also loved it because fairies. And Batty. Oh, also I was totally one of those kids that grew up reading National Geographic and stuff. So like conservation conversations were not foreign to me even as a child. So but yeah, it still scared me when all the black sludge came out. I guess it did its job. Cartoons with big heavy messages, I guess. Anyways, still so good. Very entertaining. I liked it. Oh, you guys. Anyways, thanks for stitching with me. I'll be back for our final section on October 30th. And I cannot believe that we're this far into the project. Holy smokes. It's almost done. In praise of pollinators. What a fun stitch. What fun. All right. Take care, everyone. Enjoy your October. I hope you go to a pumpkin patch and drink all the cider and do all the cozy, lovely things as the weather starts to shift in the northern hemisphere. And as it starts to warm up in the southern, I hope that you do lovely things outdoors and take in that vitamin D. It's so important. Oh my goodness. I would say it's probably the best thing since moving away from the Pacific Northwest, which I miss with all my heart. But there has been thus far a lot more sunshine, and that's delightful. So grateful for that. But I love fall is my favorite time of year, and I am fully embracing it. So I hope you do too. I hope you enjoy your stitching, and I'll see you in a month. Take care.